2022 is here. Oh, I do love a clean slate and a new chapter. And this year, in 2022, I'm going to start tracking my perfume wardrobe once again. If you have watched me for any length of time, you may recall that I used to keep a spreadsheet of all of the perfumes that I used to wear on pretty much a daily basis. It wasn't super consistent because, as I'll get into in a little bit, I'm really crappy with spreadsheets sometimes. And then sometime in 2020, I lost that spreadsheet. I thought I had it saved to the cloud, but in fact it was saved to my desktop, and I lost my hard drive. And so I lost my spreadsheet. I did contemplate starting a new one, but to be honest, I really hate using spreadsheets on my phone. And the reality is, when I'm trying to keep track of my perfume and what I'm wearing every day and any notes that I might have in relation to how that perfume is going for that day, I don't really want to be typing it out in a spreadsheet on my phone. So I decided that I didn't want to do a spreadsheet. So then I was sort of left with trying to find an app that did what I wanted it to do. And my first port of call was to look at other apps that had been built for people to track their clothing wardrobes. And that was okay. A lot of those apps are paid, and they have very limited capability in the free versions. And I wasn't sure I really wanted to make the investment to subscribe or to pay for an app until I knew that I was going to continue to do this consistently. The other thing too is that a lot of those apps don't have the functionality of being able to export data into other formats, and that was really important to me. So none of those apps really did it for me. I also looked at things like Notion, which I have been using on and off for other things. Notion I find to be not very user-friendly for me. For whatever reason, the way that app is designed or the way that platform is designed, it just doesn't really work for me. It's just not how my brain works. And the other thing too is that for some reason, the mobile app for Notion always kicks me out. It won't let me stay logged in, and it's really cumbersome to constantly be having to log back in. So I kind of gave up on the idea of Notion for tracking this stuff. And then I just sort of sat down and thought, okay, well, what do I want to be able to do? And then let's see if I can find something that meets all of that criteria. But first of all, why do I even want to track my perfume wardrobe? What purpose does it serve? Well, I do have quite an extensive perfume wardrobe, so it does help me to understand what I'm really wearing and what I'm not really wearing. And I think that tracking my perfume wardrobe helps me to avoid overwhelm in terms of deciding what to wear. A lot of the time I just go with my gut, but on the days when I just don't know what I want to wear, it would be nice to be able to point to something and go, well, I haven't worn that in a really long time, let's give that one a go. And the other reason is that when I'm, as I'm doing YouTube and social media and things like that, it is handy to know exactly what I've been wearing so that I can build content around that topic. And sure, I can look back at my Instagram, and that's, gives me a little bit of a record, but not a complete comprehensive record. But mostly I just rely on my memory, and that's not great because memory is imperfect. And, sometimes we can think we have worn something more than we have if we just go by, our gut feel of what we think we've worn. So it's not very accurate is what I'm getting at. Also, a lot of the time I'm wearing samples as well as stuff from my full bottle collection, and I want to be able to identify what I'm wearing and when, and which things are samples and which things, how often I'm really going through samples and things like that. So there's a whole raft of reasons. I basically want to be able to categorically say, yes, I definitely wore that at that time, and I want to be able to track information about how I was feeling about that wear on that particular day. And I also want to move to a place of refocusing my attention on understanding what I already have in my perfume wardrobe rather than just constantly looking for something new and buying new stuff. Now, we all know I had a failed low buy year in 2021. I started out pretty good and it just snowballed and died by sort of mid-year. The whole low buy thing went out the window. And I think for me, part of that issue is low buys probably don't work for me, at least in the first instance. I think maybe I just need to go cold turkey and have a no buy for a while, because allowing myself little drip feeds of purchases and or doing whatever it is that I'm trying to cut out of my life, allowing myself a little bit of something makes me just want it more. So yeah, the low buy was a fail. So I want to refocus my attention on what is actually in my wardrobe, really start to build a good understanding of what it is that I have and how much I really like it. Because at this point in time, I'm saying, oh yeah, I love everything in my wardrobe. But if that was the case, then I'd have no problem just picking up anything in my wardrobe and wearing it on any given day. But that definitely doesn't happen. You know, also the geek in me really wants to be able to track and understand exactly what I've worn, and I want to be able to manipulate the data to find patterns and things like that, because it's fun. So after looking at all these other apps like Notion, like these wardrobe tracking apps, I finally settled on something called Airtable. I don't know how I found it, but so far it's looking really promising and seems to meet all the criteria that I have, which includes, I needed it to allow me to export data into a CSV file. I also wanted to be able to build peripheral information around the core tracking data. So obviously the core tracking data is things like the perfume, the date that I wore it, the perfumer, that sort of thing. But I wanted to be able to have the option to build out information around other things around those bits of data. For example, if it's the house, you know, who's the creative director, what other perfumes have they done? Do I want to try and enter in some data around the history of the house, so that when I'm creating a YouTube video or writing a blog post or something, I've got at my fingertips a whole heap of information and data that I can pull from to create content, and without having to go and do extra research. And yes, that will take time to build out, but I want to be able to have that functionality to do that and to have it all in one place. The other really important thing, probably the most important thing, in addition to being able to export the data, is that it had to have a mobile app, and the mobile app had to be really easy to use, because if it's hard for me to use, or if it keeps logging me out and requiring me to log back in every time, then I'm just not going to use it. And if it's too convoluted, like a spreadsheet, too finicky, I'm not going to use it on my phone. So it really, really needed to be user-friendly on a mobile device. So that is what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you how I've set up a template in Airtable to track all this stuff, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. If not, you may as well just click out now. And I'm also hoping there might be a few of you who are pros at Airtable already and maybe use it for this or for other things, and might have some tips on how I can set it up a bit better, because I haven't populated it with a huge amount of data yet. So there's still opportunities for me to fix it and refine it if I need to. And just a quick note too, that this video is not sponsored by Airtable. I wish it was, but for those of you who are curious, no, it is not. I'm purely just doing this out of interest and to show you how I'm doing it. Okay, so here I am in my main workspace. This is what I see after I've been to the Airtable website on my desktop and logged in. You can see that it shows all of the bases that I have. Bases are just the hip term for database, and these are the databases. So I have two here. The first one that you can see is a blog editorial calendar. This is just a free template that I downloaded in hopes that it might help me to better organize my YouTube, Instagram, and my blog content. I haven't used it yet. I haven't populated any of it. But what I've been focusing on is this perfume tracker. Here we are in my perfume tracker. I have 4 tables that comprise my perfume tracker database at this point in time. I have my wardrobe, which is basically a list of all of the perfumes in my wardrobe. At this point in time, you can see there is only a few entries because I've only been populating this as I wear a perfume. So the data entry has been pretty slow. I've only been using it consistently since January 1st. It is now January 2nd, hence why there isn't a lot of information in here yet. We also have a table dedicated to perfumers. So this tracks obviously the name of the perfumer and the perfumes that they have. As I add more perfumes to my perfume wardrobe, you will see more perfumes pop up in this field here. I also have a table tracking the house, and here we can see Almond Jane, the only perfume so far that I've worn since I started putting information into this table was Almond Woman. And I've also put a field here called Creative Director. Now this is a fixed field, and in hindsight I think I'm going to change this because creative directors do change over time. Probably not with Almond Jane because Linda Pilkington, that's her house. But with houses like Dior, for instance, we know that Frances Kurkdjian has recently become the creative director there. And so creative directors change over time. And if I just put them in this field here, there's no way of showing which creative director created or was responsible for a specific perfume. So what I might do actually, now that I think about it, is go back into my wardrobe and add a field in here which allows me to identify the creative director. In fact, I might do that right now. Single line, so that's fine. And now we can see somewhere, hopefully, that I have a field called Creative Director. Here it is. And I can move that down if I want to. So yeah, I think that's a better way to track it actually in hindsight, because of it, again, these creative directors may change over time, and then there would be no, if I change this, then it changes it for all of those perfumes in that house, not just the perfumes that they were responsible for. Anyway, moving on, then we get to the important part, which is the wear history. So we can see here I've got the date that I wore it, the perfume name, and a column here or a field here for wear notes. Now, the thing I like about this Airtable setup is that these wear notes here are specific to this specific date that I wore it. So if I'm wearing it in winter versus summer, and I find that I pick up different things in summer, I will be able to identify when I started to identify these changes or these new notes in the fragrance that I maybe hadn't picked up before. So this is more specific to how I'm feeling about the particular fragrance on the day that I wear it, versus in here, if I go back to my wardrobe table and I click on an entry, I have a notes field here as well, which is where I capture my more overarching understanding of a fragrance. So this will be more detailed or less detailed depending on how familiar I am with a fragrance when I create the card. And for some this will be very brief, but this is Almond Woman, and as you know, I love Almond Woman, so I have worn it a lot and I've gathered a lot of thoughts about it over time, and so therefore I have quite a lengthy description here about how it wears and what I like about it, etc., etc. You also can upload an image, which I really like because in a spreadsheet that's a bit harder to do, and I do like the visual of the gallery view, which is this here. Over time, as I enter in more perfumes, this might get a little bit cumbersome, and then I can switch to the grid view, which is more like a normal spreadsheet if I wish to. But for the moment, I'm really enjoying this view, and I also really like this on my phone as well. So I will also say that this wardrobe table is where I pretty much do most of the work. So when I'm entering a new item, I can add it here and start filling it out, or if I know that I'm wearing a particular fragrance again, say Almond Woman, let's just go with that, I can actually add to my wear history through this card. So the wardrobe field is where I tend to do most of my work. So just taking you again, going back and taking you through the fields here, you can upload an image. You can also take screenshots of the official photos of the perfumes if you want. I'm usually taking photos for Instagram anyway, so I just tend to use photos that are on my phone that I already have of the bottle. I have a status icon here, which tells me I've really only got three options. I've either got a full bottle and it's currently in my collection, or I've decluttered it, or it's a sample or decant. I may have to come up with a different system if I want to track when I transition from a sample to a full bottle, because if I change this here, so if I change this to a sample here and then change it back to full bottle, it's not telling me when I had the sample and then when I decided to buy the full bottle, for example. So I may have to change my system there, and I don't know how I would do that yet. But future editing Cherie here. I just thought I'd jump on here and clarify that since making this video, I have fixed this problem for myself, I think. So what I've done with the status field in the wardrobe card is to basically indicate whether something is currently in my collection or whether it's been decluttered, because things will come and go from my wardrobe, but I don't want to delete records from this table. So by identifying whether something is decluttered or whether it's currently active, I'll be able to keep track of exactly what's in my wardrobe at any given time. And then in my wear history table, what I've done is I've added a field called wear type, and then I've put a drop-down list in there where I can either say it's a full bottle wear or it's a sample or decant. So that enables me to see, you know, when I was sampling something, how long I sampled it for, and then when I obviously bought a full bottle. There's also a little comments section down here on the right, which you might be able to see, and this will also allow me to identify, I can always just throw a comment in there to say, you know, I bought a full bottle on such and such a date, so that I can keep track of, you know, when I was actually purchasing these things. And the final change that I've made is in my wear history table, I've also added a field called wear rating, which is just a star rating, which enables me to very quickly just throw in how I was feeling about that fragrance on that particular day. Obviously, I can keep written notes, but if I just want to quickly give it a rating, I can do that as well, and then I'll be able to track that over time and see how I'm rating that fragrance over time. I've just created this creative director field, which you saw earlier. The next field is the perfumer. This links back to the perfumer table, so that's pretty straightforward. I just literally would link here and then select a perfumer from the list. Same here. I can just link it back to the house, and this will just show me some basic information here. But then if I want to show more information or collect more detailed information about each house, I can do that in the house table. I also have fields to capture the note composition information. For the most part, these are just copied directly from Fragrantica, but noting, of course, that Fragrantica is neither always 100% correct, and nor is it always fully comprehensive, but it's just an easy way for me to get some information in there. I also have a field for the perfume family. This is pretty broad and pretty fluid at the moment. I'm not really being too specific here. I have put in some options for the types of perfumes that I might want to use as descriptors, mostly going off the Michael Edwards fragrance wheel. And then of course we have the important part, which is the wear history. So every time I wear this fragrance, a new little tab will appear here. I can just add another one here. So if I want to add a new record, I can. Let's say I want to wear this today. I don't have to add comments if I don't want to. And now we can see that I now have 2 entries here, and I can see when exactly I entered them. You will also note that down in the next field, which is the wear count, that has now automatically been upgraded to 2, because this count field is linked back to my wear history table. I'm just going to get rid of that one. So then the next field is the date released. This is really just a year, but the date field only allows you to enter a very specific date, a full date format. So I've just been working off the 1st of January, and then more importantly, capturing the year of release. Next field is the longevity. I've really only got 3 options in here. I've put 0 to 4 hours, 4 to 8 hours, or 8+. And then I have an overall rating field. Now this is fairly arbitrary. This is just how I feel about the perfume, and it only captures my feelings about this perfume in a particular point in time. If I change the star rating, there's no way of tracking when that changed. So this is really just meant to be my current feeling for that particular perfume. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell, how I'm capturing this information to do with my perfume wardrobe and what I'm wearing. What I really like about this app is that there is a really easy to use mobile app, because as I mentioned, I hate having to log into a spreadsheet on my desktop. I hate using spreadsheets on my phone. I find them really cumbersome and finicky. This is just a really nice visual on the phone as well, and it's really easy to enter information. And I don't always enter all of this information the moment I wear a perfume. Sometimes I literally just put the name of the perfume, the date that I wore it, and maybe the house, and that's it. And then I'll go in and populate all of the other data later on. But this is just a really quick and easy way for me to be able to capture information on the go, and I don't have to be on my desktop in order for it to be easy for me. Anyway, so that's it basically. This is how I'm planning to use Airtable in 2022 to start capturing how I wear my perfumes once again, and hopefully this time I won't lose the data. The other thing I really love about this app is that it's free. So you can see here, down here, there are options for other features you can get in the Pro version, but these are more, from what I can see, more to do with more detailed project management features, which I don't need. So the fact that this is a free app and I have all of this functionality in a free app is pretty amazing. I also have, of course, the option to export all of this data into a CSV and go back to maintaining a spreadsheet if I really need to. So that's why I picked this. I needed that functionality of being able to export into a spreadsheet, and because I can export it into a spreadsheet, I can play around with the data and graph it and visualize it in different ways. If I really want to geek out, I can, but otherwise it's a very easy to use platform, either on my desktop or on my phone, to just quickly capture the information that I want, which is what I'm wearing and when I'm wearing it, and maybe some notes about how I'm feeling about it on any given day. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if you do something similar. If you are familiar with Airtable and you're a bit of a pro, I would very much welcome any input or suggestions on how to make this better or easier. And yeah, share it in the comments below how you track your perfume wardrobe. I'd really love to hear about it. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.